website.
A man striving to become a priest has quite a story to tell of perseverance and faith.
Unbelievable stumbling blocks halted Joel Faulk's religious journey, but his passion never wavered. Nancy Parker reports trials have left him with a sacred heart.
Midday Mass at Notre Dame Seminary is an uphill climb for Joel Faulk. He hears God's word from the choir stand.
Lord, hear our prayer.
A mask near his face is a small price to pay for all the miracles he's seen.
And there's a tremendous sense of that peace and that a fulfillment that I'm doing what God wants me to be doing.
So that we have this idea that even though it's in the round...
Joel is one of more than 100 seminarians at Notre Dame. The Abbeville native and ULL grad started the path to priesthood more than a decade ago.
So there was always the nudges of thinking about priesthood.
He had no idea what challenges lay ahead.
In fall of '99, I started at the North American College in Rome.
Joel was in his early 20s, beginning a new life in Rome. He enjoyed the camaraderie with other future priests, but large bruises from a pickup football game revealed the first test of his faith.
It was right after Lent had started. It was maybe a couple of weeks into Lent, I believe, when I came down with a diagnosis from the leukemia. I spent a month in the hospital there in Rome, got stable enough to travel back to the U.S., came back almost a year, finished treatments there.
Intense chemo treatments conquered his illness. He was well enough to return to his religious studies.
Almost finished the second year of theology when I relapsed in the spring of, 2002. That's when I decided to step out of seminary. I got to a point where I knew my heart was divided.
His heart would be transformed.
Once I got back on my feet from the chemo the first time, after the second go-round, I took a job in Lafayette at one of the church parishes, running religious ed programs.
Later, he was hired at Archbishop Rummel as a religion teacher and enjoyed the job for years. But the nagging inside him started again.
I knew I needed to go to seminary.
He enrolled at Notre Dame Seminary in the fall of 2013. For the first time in 10 years, he was back on his chosen path to be a priest. And just like a decade before, another mountain stood in his way. Seminary President Jim Weiner remembers.
He was here for about 2 weeks. He was moving his things in, and he already started experiencing shortness of breath.
The toxicity of the chemo from the leukemia that I needed to handle the cancer had permanently damaged my heart. Now, I was not aware of this.
It wasn't until before Christmas where he was making a routine visit to Ochsner, and they told him right on the spot, go home, back to the seminary, pack a bag, because you're going to need a heart transplant.
He had heart failure. He was very sick when he came to the clinic.
Ochsner cardiologist Dr. Hector Ventura immediately put Joel on a transplant list. The wait for a heart is usually lengthy.
By New Year's Eve, they had put me on a pump. They'd inserted the pump that went in to kind of help my heart.
They strapped him to a bed and said, we have 1 week to find you a heart. And after that, if we don't find one, they would have to hook him to a machine that he would have to carry with him.
Joel looked to God for answers.
I was ready, but part of me was like, Lord, I still find it hard to believe that you would call me back to seminary only to have me die at this point.
The situation suddenly changed.
I don't know if they call it divine intervention, but something happened.
On January 5th, 5 days after being on the transplant list, Joel was told he had a heart.
We got too many people waiting and not a lot of donation. This is unusual, that you have a person on the list for 1 day. I mean 5 days and then transplanted.
It was 7 o'clock on Sunday evening when word was received, and he was joyfully calling around, they have found a heart. We all went running over to the hospital.
His fellow seminarians celebrated Mass in his room.
I anointed him that evening, and then he went into surgery the next morning.
The next morning, Joel received the heart of a young man about his age.
He was walking home New Year's Day, got hit by a car.
The transplant surgery was on January 6th, the Epiphany.
The Lord is the gift of God to the world, and those three kings gave gifts back to God. So in a sense, God was giving Joel a second chance. That was God's gift to him because the Lord wants him to be a priest. And Joel is responding by giving his life back over to the Lord as a priest. That is our gift back to God.
Joel was released from the hospital after only 9 days and returned to the seminary where he'd finish his life's dream.
Because of heart rejection concerns, Joel would have to wear one of those medical masks. When we pulled off of Carrollton into the driveway, all the seminarians were on the steps wearing those masks. And as he got out of the car, of course, everyone was very joyful and tearful, and it was good to have our brother back.
For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours.
He's on track, and God willing, 2 years from now, he'll be a priest.
So from the choir stand, Joel Faulk gives thanks for his blessings of life.
It's in suffering that we're called to die to ourselves in order to go out to serve others.
And for the word that sustains him.
Christ, in many ways, was the first heart transplant surgeon in just that reality that he takes away our stony hearts to give us his own sacred heart.
Nancy Parker, Fox 8 News.
Joel says he contacted the father of his heart donor, and he says they spoke over the phone for a long time. Joel told him how grateful he was, and the young man's father said he was happy that his son's heart will allow him to continue his journey to priesthood.
Wow, what a story, huh?
Great story. Great story.
All right, Champion Square gets ready to host